Hi, good evening. It's 8 p.m. British Standard Time, or 8 p.m. In London, and today is the 2nd of May 2021. And every week we like to do a look back at the news from Zimmer and Peacock for this week. So, this is a look back from the news for the week starting the 26th of April 2021. As I say, it's 8 p.m. Here in London. So, some of the news from Zimmer and Peacock this week. This is significant news. We're very good friends and partners with a company called Exhalation. I mean, this is one of the sort of biosensor technologies from Exhalation. This technology is used to collect and analyze breath condensate. And when, unfortunately, when the COVID-19 crisis came along, Exhalation did a really excellent business decision and essentially what's called pivoting. So they took a really excellent technology that they have for the detection of COPD, which is chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Unfortunately, it's one of the sort of major diseases that people suffer from near the end of life. And when the COVID-19 came along, they took this breath analysis technology. As I say, this is the cartridge that goes with that technology. And they repositioned it. So rather than collecting the breath and analyzing for COPD, they collect the breath and they actually analyze for the presence of SARS-CoV-2. That was a really, they did a really quick job, and I mean, we're very delighted to be part of that story at Zimmer and Peacock. So Zimmer and Peacock, as many of you know, our business model is we do contract development and contract manufacturing, and we're delighted that to be part of that. I also appreciate the fact that we're starting to get people to follow us on the video log, and I just had a nice message from Ali, who's one of our friends in the sort of Gulf region. So thank you for joining us tonight, Ali. So that was just some news from Zimmer and Peacock, that this week we've actually been with our partner Exhalation placing the Corona Check, which is a really cool technology for collecting the breath and analyzing and detecting SARS-CoV-2. We've been helping with it in Italy this week. So that was just some news that we put out from Zimmer and Peacock this week. So sometimes the news is quite light, and sometimes the news is actually quite serious. And being able to genuinely be in hospitals and genuinely being able to actually help with the fight against this pandemic. I mean, in the photograph, you see these guys lined up here. That's actually a photograph from the hospital, and these are the guys who are taking this breath detection system and using it with the patients, and the feedback is they're really delighted with the technology, because essentially there's many ways of potentially getting a SARS-CoV-2 sample, but collecting it on the breath is probably one of the least evasive ways you can actually do this. Now I know that some of you who may be watching this webinar or this video log tonight would have been at the webinar as well, so I won't spend too much time at it. But if you missed the webinar this week, we do a webinar for our developers every Thursday at 8 a.m. London time. And this week we did a webinar where in the webinar it's mainly for our developers own members, and we sort of talked about the formation of a electrochemical biosensor specifically for glucose. We talked about the barrier layer that can be used in glucose sensing, and I talked about the barrier layer actually being quite useful for enhancing the linearity. And then Ali, who's one of our watchers online, also sort of made the comment, well, actually the barrier layer is also preventing other molecules, not glucose, from reaching the sensor and giving you a signal. And that's true. I forgot to cover that in the webinar, but the classics are, you've got molecules like paracetamol, acetaminophen, ascorbic acid. These can all interfere with the glucose sensor. And so I didn't mention it in the webinar, but we did talk about the construction of a glucose sensor and the use of a barrier layer, and how the barrier layer can actually help you with linearity on a glucose sensor. but we didn't talk about how the barrier layer can also help with interference. What we did talk about in that webinar is actually don't over rely on a particular electrochemical technique if that electrochemical technique is not the one that you intend to use in your sensor. So what do I mean by that? So we had a ZP Developer Zone member question in the forum which said, my cyclovoltammetry is not that great, but actually my amperometry was perfectly fine. And what I said to them there was, don't get obsessed with the cyclovoltammetry if you're actually intending to run this technique by amperometries or chronoamperometry. It's important. People get very obsessed with, why is my cyclovoltammetry not the best it possibly could? And then you say, well, how are you intending to use the sensor? Oh, I'm going to use chronoamperometry. Okay. Well, don't worry about the cyclovoltammetry too much then. So we helped that client or that collaborator troubleshoot and be reassured by their sensor. We also highlighted a video we have on the website which actually says, be careful with cyclovoltammetry when you're doing biosensor development. Now, one of the last things we talked about in the webinar this week was actually Julie. Julie is a free cloud-based, it's probably the only cloud-based electrochemical let's say tool in the world at the moment. You can upload your data, analyze your data, share your data, and we've just started adding EIS, electrochemical impedance spectroscopy functionality to it. Now, it's completely free, and as a result, it is a work in progress. But as a work in progress, I think it's a pretty good technology. So, especially if you're a member of the Developer Zone, join in, because Julie is going to get better and better and better. So that was some. So we did that webinar on Thursday. Something else, and now I appreciate that some of you already have your PhD, so unfortunately this can't help you so much. But we do say to people, if you are super interested in joining Zimmer and Peacock, we are very collaborative people, and really helps if you can actually kind of interact with us, even before essentially getting a job. I mean, there's plenty of people, we're recruiting all the time, but it does help if we've kind of met you and we have a relationship with you first. So there's a very good PhD available at a university called USN, and it's on biosensor implants for in vivo monitoring. It's actually in the in vivo monitoring of fish. So it involves glucose and cortisol. And we are encouraging people, if you're excited by the world of biosensors and you think you can make a real difference to kind of essentially, the well-being of our planet, and that does involve, veterinary applications as well, then we would really ask you to apply for that PhD. Now, I think this is kind of interesting as well this week, that what makes ZP different is we do biosensor development for our customers and collaborators. I think we're quite, I know we're unusual. People look at us and say, oh, you guys do screen printing. I think screen printing is just a tiny bit of what we do. I mean, these pictures were taken at a hospital in near Oslo, and in these photographs, essentially what's happened is our engineers and scientists, people like Ali, I would say, have gone in there and they are taking these biosensors that we've developed in the lab, and they're testing them on real patient samples. So we're sort of training the hospital and the clinicians in the hospital. This is one of the people working at the hospital. We're training them to take the biosensor that we've developed in our labs, and they are testing them then with real samples. So this definitely makes us really different, because we not only sort of produce electrodes, we functionalize electrodes into biosensors. We put, in this case, antibodies on the surface, and then the analyte or proteins of interest are binding, and that's causing us a change in the surface, which is giving us a signal. What you'll notice about this is that we've taken these scientific instruments into the hospital, and we're training the user up. And you can see from here that we're using impedance spectroscopy, and we're actually using the Julie database to actually analyze that impedance spectroscopy for us. But it makes us very different. The fact is, we actually will go in, essentially roll up our sleeves and help doctors and clinicians in hospitals directly on behalf of our clients. So again, I mean, if you're interested in this kind of career where, you know, you will develop biosensors, test them in the lab on surrogates, but actually then go into hospitals and generally work with doctors and nurses and clinicians and test these sensors, then that's pretty cool, I think. And what you will notice is we're not testing one sensor at a time. We're having to test 12 sensors at a time, because obviously biosensor development is, you know, it's statistical. You know, it's not, did you get the result once? You have to get the result, you know, 10 or, you know, 10x times, let's say. You know, you need a lot of data to really know that, you know, the signal is for real, let's say. So far this week then we've been helping out Italy with COVID-19 using these electrochemical biosensors. We've then did our big webinar on glucose. That was pretty cool. We took sensors then like this and actually took them into a Norwegian hospital, and we're helping with a more of a protein binding assay. And as I say, you know, if you really want to join us and you've not yet got your PhD, then there is a PhD in Horton at USN with a professor called Eric Johansson up there, and it's really close to us, so it's a great way of starting to collaborate with us. Now, I hope that Zimmer and Peacock seems like a sort of an unusual company, because I think that we are. We don't want to be another company. We want to be a company that really is a force for good in this world, and so we do have a sort of a vision and a mission and our value. And the reason that, you know, we do the ZP Developer Zone, and the reason we do the ZP Academy, and the reason we put so much information out there, you might wonder, well, why do these guys do this? And it's essentially because we want to create, you know, if you look at our vision and our mission and our values, we're actually trying to create, you know, wider opportunities for the whole sort of, we say community here, but in some ways I sometimes think about, you know, the scientific community for, you know, people across the globe. I think Zimmer and Peacock can be, you know, a force for good through good collaboration, good technology, and also, you know, essentially for, you know, for some great jobs and great careers as well. So what's driving us at ZP is essentially these, you know, is this, you know, that we want to make really great biosensors, and we do want to improve the outcome for the, you know, for our global, you know, community. And actually, you know, we want to sort of, you know, we are a business, and so we do have to make profit, but it's not the profit, it's what we're doing with that profit as well. You know, we're reinvesting it and actually helping people in the wider community, and I think that we are. And the reason I sort of think that we are is just about now there'll be one of our ZP Developer Zone members actually touching down in the UK. So, you know, we are in a COVID-19 pandemic, but you can travel. It just involves things like 10 days quarantine, and we're a little bit, you know, reluctant to have people kind of flying in and stuff. But one of our ZP Developer Zone members, he was very keen to come to us, and I have a philosophy which is, if you can figure out how to get to us, then we will try and help you. So this guy figured out, and I admire people like this, that he found out that the Royal Society of Chemistry has a fund called the Analytical Chemistry Trust Fund, and so I've linked to it off the website. And it essentially says, you know, if you're in certain parts of the world and you want to come to the UK or Ireland and, you know, work with a company and sort of learn some stuff and bring it back home again, I say some stuff. For example, you know, he's written a letter which says, or, you know, a project says, I'm going to come to Zimmer and Peacock and I'm going to learn about biosensor development, and I'm going to spend 3 months in the UK learning this at their labs. For which you can receive up to £5,000. Now the thing about £5,000 is, you know, it can sound like a lot of money depending, you know, on your circumstances, but 3 months in the UK on £5,000 is not, it's not sufficient to live. So he had won this award and was going to come to the UK and spend 3 months with us, and that's going to happen. He's landing, but we actually said, you know, we're gonna grant match this. For every pound that the RSC gives you, you know, we'll match it. So the 5,000 became 10,000, and then that does make economic sense. 10,000 to essentially, you know, sort of live on and travel on to the UK for 3 months. It does make sense, you know, as long as you're sort of frugal with it. And the reason we do that is because we are supportive of, you know, we have this developer zone, you know, we have these webinars every week, we have these collaborations going on, and, you know, it's part of essentially of our values that, you know, we should be helping people, because if you help people, people will help you. And then as part of helping people, this particular ZP Developer Zone member helped himself by being entrepreneurial and finding a source of money, and the RSC provided him a letter to support his visa, and he was able to come to the UK. And then we were able to say, all right, well, if you're going to come and, you know, here and work with us for 3 months, then we can only help by match funding the money you got from the RSC and take it from 5,000 to 10,000. So let me just do a summary of the news from Zimmer and Peacock for this week. So pretty significant things this week. ZP technology that we're manufacturing in our facility is being used in Italy for detection of SARS-CoV-2 on the breath. I think that's pretty significant. We did a nice webinar, quite intense webinar this week on essentially glucose sensing. As part of our sort of, I wouldn't say community, but, you know, our involvement in our biosensor community, we are sponsoring this PhD at USN. You can see that Zimmer and Peacock, you know, we're very active on these programs, and so that's why we've been into a hospital this week, training up the clinicians there. You can see that this company is anchored on some, you know, some values and a mission that we're doing. So we want to make fantastic biosensors, but we also want to support, you know, sort of global health, global food production, you know, and create good jobs and good opportunities for people. And as part of that, we're doing match funding for the Analytical Chemistry Trust Fund. So the Analytical Chemistry Trust Fund will help people from certain parts of the globe come to the UK. They'll give grants of up to £5,000. So it's reasonable that people kind of maybe come to ZP, especially only really if they're members of the ZP Developer Zone and they're known to us. And then if they're successful in getting those grants, then we're match funding it, as long as we agree that we are going to collaborate. Okay, so today is the 2nd of May 2021. This was a look back at the news for this week, starting the 26th of April 2021. I appreciate you guys being online, and don't forget we have our webinar at 8 AM on Thursday, London time, for the Developers Zone members, and I hopefully see you there. Okay, I appreciate it, Ali. Cheers, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.